Hey, it's Apom here at the Dice Cup. I'm going to do a rules explanation for Pulsar 2849. Chantal's going to be working the camera and helping direct me a little bit. So, the main thing you've got to get your head around on the game. So obviously I've assumed it's already set up, you can read that bit in the manual. The main thing is the dice bit here, the actions. Okay. These are the 4 players, first, second, third, fourth player. You actually then take the dice. The first player will take one of these dice. You randomly roll them at the start. Start player generally rolls them. They would take one dice, take it off. Then the second player takes a dice, the third, the fourth. Then the fourth player takes the next dice, third, second, first. So it's like a horseshoe effect. So at the end, everyone will have taken 2 dice, and the first player will have taken both the first dice and the last dice. There should be exactly 1 dice remaining at the end of this. So if you had 3 players, you'd actually be rolling 7 dice. If you look, so here's an example with 9 dice, you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, find the 5th dice, put this yellow marker there. After you roll the dice, cover these dice over, see which side has the most dice. If it does, move it that way. If they're both the same, you keep it in the middle. And this decides how much you change on these 2 tracks as you take certain dice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset these up as they were when they originally started. So, say for example, I take the dice now and roll them. I would take these, start putting them on. So there's the 6s, 5's there, 4 there, 3's there, 1. I would count the 5th, find out where the 5th dice is, first, second, third, fourth, 5th dice. So that would be here. I cover that dice up, look, and there's an equal number on both sides, so this will stay here. Okay. So imagine the first player is red, and red decides to take this dice. Because it's actually in that spot, there's no change. For the next player would be the blue player. They decide to take a 6 because high numbers are normally better. This is 1, 2 in this direction, so they have to move back to one of these 2 tracks. So they might go back 2 on the initiative track. When the green player comes around, they decide to take a 3. That's 1 on this side. They decide to go up on the engineering track, so they go up 1 there. And then the last player, yellow, gets to pick 1 dice and then a second dice. And they might decide they really want to go high on the track, so they take both of the ones, one after the other. So that's 1, 2, 3. So they go up. 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3 in this track. And then it would cycle round. The reason for this is at the end of the turn, you actually rearrange the start players depending on this. So in this case, red would stay first, then it would be green, then yellow, and then blue, because blues move back. Also at the very end, after everyone's taken their actions, you gain engineering cubes depending on where you are here. And that is these cubes here. So the first player would take 3, the second 2, the third player 1, fourth player gets nothing. And if you start to run out of those, you have got these tokens as well, which count as 4 engineering cubes. They're also shaped like a red dice, which will be a... there's a reason for that. It's to help you. So that's the dice. So everyone's going to have 2 of these dice, and they effectively have 2 actions they can do. You can always have, if you can manage to find a way to get one extra bonus red dice. So let's start talking about some of the actions you can do. Here is one of the simplest ones. Sometimes you won't have quite the dice you need. You will always start with one of these, and it's a dice modifier. So imagine I'm playing a 4, I can pretend it's a 3 or a 5. If I had one of these in my hand, I could pretend it's a 6. If you're ever desperate, you can spend a 1 or 2 dice here to get one of these, or 2 dice to get one of these. Generally, it's not great if you're doing that. But sometimes if you're really stuck, you just have to do it. Okay. The next thing I'll show you is movement on the board. Okay. So imagine I'm the red player here, and I use the 4 dice for movement. So I'm now going to move 4 on this board, starting here. You can go wherever you want, but you can't go back on yourself. So I might go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Every time you go through one of these, it gets flipped over. And the rule is that if you pass through, you don't get any benefit apart from saying you visited it. And when you visit it, you first of all cover with your markers, which are in your player colour, any brown planets. Once the brown planet's gone, even though you travel through it, say it's the blue player just travelled through this, they would start covering up blue planets. There's a reason why when you go through it, you go through the brown planets first, and then the blue planets. Okay, Imagine instead I've actually gone to here, 1, 2, 3, 4. The one you land on, as long as there's a blue planet to put it on, and that's the first choice you do, you gain a benefit. So this, because I've gone through it, goes on a brown. This one here goes on a blue. Because it's a blue planet, I gain a benefit. The benefit here is at the bottom. I can get either a 1 or a 3 gyrodine. You can also buy these with dice as well. But as I said, this one I went past it, I don't get anything for that. If somebody else was to land on here, say for example the blue player somehow managed to go through some of these and land here, there's a blue planet, so they would go on there, and then imagine we've got, for example, the green player somehow does all their movements, lands here, there's no blue planet left, so they'd have to go on the brown planet, so even though they land on it, they don't get the bonus. Okay, and that's the reason why when you go through a planet, you go on the brown planets first. When you land on one, you go on the blue planet first. If you land on one as a blue planet, you get a bonus. If you land on the planet and you don't want to take the benefit, you can take one of these tokens which are randomly shuffled. If you take this one, for example, the top one, you tip it over, this is 4 victory points. This would be 3 in the engineering cube. They can give you various benefits.
Is there any tiles of like this kind which gives you negative stuff?
No, everything that you get from those tiles are going to be positive. The next thing you can do is, if you saw here, I could go 1, 2, 3, 4 and land on one of these blue things. They're called pulsars. When you land on one, you take one of your red circles and put it on there and you claim it. And once it's claimed, you're the only person who can actually do anything with that. And then you can move around, and if I later land on that one, I could claim that one. And so on and so forth.
Can you put a circle if you don't stop on it?
No, if you go through it, you don't get to put a circle down. It's only if you actually land on that space. There's a few effects in the game which will allow you to go onto these special ones which you can't actually travel to. There's no other way of getting them. Okay. The next thing you can do as an action is you can buy these, and these are called gyrodines. You need a 1, a 2 or 4 dice to take them through. There's a lot of bonuses which give you these as well. Imagine I use the 2 dice, I could take this and put it in front of me. I could also, if I did wanted to, place in one of these, but generally I don't until I need to use it. But imagine I put it there. At the moment that's doing nothing for me. If I spend a 5 dice, I can flip it to the other side, and that's called spinning it up. And now this is going to generate me at least 2 points at the end of every round.
The reason you're using a 5 dice is?
Because when you look at it, it actually has a 5 on there.
Okay.
So if we come over here, the 3s take a 6 to spin up, and the 1s take a 3 to spin up. Also, the first person to place inside the rings 2 1s take this token, which gets them 7 points. The second person, which could be the same player, gets 4 points, and you have the same benefit for 2s and 3s. Okay. One of the next things you can do is you can buy these engineering stations. You need the dice that's shown at the bottom. This one, for example, I put 4 dice on it, and you immediately take it and flip it over, and it's built in front of you. Imagine I built that. You'll notice it's got a benefit here. It's light and it's got a tick on it. That means you immediately score 6 victory points. If I was to take, for example, this one here with a 2 dice, so I pay the 2 dice in. The green player in this case might be taking that. You've claimed it, but you haven't fully built it. You still then have to put a 6 dice to build this bit. When you build that, you flip it over and it's built. This is an effect you would gain. In this case, it's you can teleport to any pulsar and grab it. This also is you get 3 victory points at the end of every turn. When you flip it over, you'll notice, because it's recurring, it's actually there. You gain 3 victory points each turn. You also notice these have got these red symbols. As soon as you put it together, you then at that point can take a red dice with that many pips. So a red 4. You can have at most on your turn 1 red dice. So you will never have more than 3 actions. This is just you use it like any other dice you want to do an action, but you're limited to only 1 red dice. If, for example, for some reason you get a second one, you just can't take it, you can't use it. Okay. one of the things which I mentioned was when you have the 9 dice here, 1 will be left over. You can always spend 4 engineering cubes to gain a red dice of that number. Hence, this is why this looks like a red dice, as a reminder. The next thing you can do is technologies. The technologies are here. There's quite a few, and if you look, these boards are actually double-sided. So there's quite a few combinations. So what I'd say is, rather than trying to explain all of them, I'll explain 2 concepts well, 3 concepts. First one is, these ones here means that you can use a 2 dice to claim it, and you'd put on there a token to mark it as claimed, and you gain this benefit. So, for example, there or there. Where you've got ones where it's got this little lock symbol, one player can go there, and then it's locked out. At the end of the turn, this moves down, and now someone else can go there. So at most, one of these can be taken in a turn. Most of the ones here are all like that. It's just maybe the first and the top ones. Okay. All the time you mark these as you gain them. No one can gain one more than once, the same one.
How do we access them? When do we access them in the game?
Right. This is the turn marker here. So we start on turn 1. This means that you can only get these technologies. It also means when you score your Jardines at the end of the round, you just get whatever values on them. So if I had that 2 Jardines spinning, I'd gain 2 points. Second round, this moves up here. Now you can have all of these technologies and all the ones below it. You also, when we score the Jardines, whatever dice is left of the 9, which would have been used as a red dice as well if people wanted to, you gain that much bonus on top of every Jardine. So if, for example, the dice that was left was a 4, and I had two Jardines, each would score 6 points for a total of 12 points. And this is how you go up, and obviously this would be the last round of the game, and then you'd have endgame scoring. So you basically go through the steps here. The first one is to do with the pink technologies. So I'll bring you over now to the technology track. You'll notice some of these ones here are pink. This means it's end game scoring. So the red player's on this, and what this means is this X, Y, Z is basically different numbers of Jardines. So if you've got just a single 2, you gain 4 points. If you've got some 2s and some 1s, you get 8 points. If you've got some combination of 1s, 2s and 3s, you get 16 points. So it helps you by having a range of numbers for your Jardines. This one would be simply every 2 cubes you've got, you can exchange for 9 points. But obviously only once, otherwise you just get that and win the game. Okay, so we'll come back to here. The next one you score on is these like goal tiles is the best way to describe them. Now I'll take you back over. You will have 3 of these tiles randomly, and you'll notice that they're actually double-sided. So you have to both pick them. There's 6 in the game. You pick 3 of them, and you pick the sides randomly. And what you do is, if you manage to achieve this, you get this many points. You then have the option, if you can pay this many engineering cubes to get this many points, this many engineering cubes to pay this many points. This is 5 different technologies. So if I had 5 different technologies and I paid a total of 5 cubes, I would get 18 points. And so on and so forth. This is to do with playboard, this is to do with locations you go to. So we'll go back to the final things. Every pulsar ring which doesn't have a pulsar in it is a point. Every Jardine that is not spun up is a point. Every 2 engineering cubes left over is a point. You get points for your position on the playing track, and then here you look at all the planets you visited, and that gives you your final total. So if we were looking at this example where I've only been to 2 planets, you'd get 2 points. Generally you'd be getting to about 9 or 10, maybe even more if you go for it. All the points are scored in this track which goes around the side here. Obviously whoever gets the most points ends up winning. The one thing I haven't really mentioned is this player boards. This is an optional thing, you don't need it for the first game. It's okay to play with it. All you do is you have it in front of you, you use a dice to go on to one of these and you gain the benefit. Look up in the rules to see what the benefits are. The only one I will bother to describe really is this one, which is a gate run. Just because it's a little bit different. You claim it with 2 dice, and then you, at the point you do it, you then put one of these on here to mark you're doing your gate run. This means for every square of these you go through, as you travel round on the planets on the main board, gets you 2 victory points. And that's it. Thank you very much.